A murder mystery in North Carolina. This woman, last seen getting into a car. Less than a week later, police say they have found her body. Her death is being investigated as a homicide. I want to start by first showing you a picture of a woman with the name of Heather Williams. You can see right here on your screen, you can see that she had a great smile. She often posted pictures on social media of herself with her family and her friends. But now police in Fayetteville, North Carolina, are searching for her killer. She first went missing on January 4th of this year. Police in Fayetteville put out this flyer in hopes that someone had seen her, that she had been missing, and that she could be brought home safe. The last time they say they saw her was she was getting into a four-door sedan and driving off from her home. The next time police would release an update on this case, it would come 6 days later. They found her body in a wooded area in Fayetteville, around here, near State Avenue and Newark Avenue. This is about 5.5 miles away from where police say they saw Williams getting into that car and driving off. The day before police say they found her body, they did find that car that she was seen getting into, but other than that, police have not released too many details. This is a case that has gotten the attention of people far beyond her hometown of Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's starting to get some attention in the national media. Also, a statewide alert went out about Heather when she went missing. Her family told WRAL-TV that she was in a car accident in 2015 and she suffered from cognitive impairment, which impacted her ability to speak. And they also say she walked with a limp because of that accident. Her family told WRAL that as far as what they've heard, police say there is a person of interest in this case. The station also reports that police have traced a 3-minute phone call made by Williams in the days leading up to her disappearance. But at the time of this recording, still no suspect has been arrested, and her family, the police, and her community are still searching for answers and information that could help solve this case. Joining us now to dive more into this case and this search for a killer is retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. It has been, at the time of recording this, 10 days since Heather Williams went missing. Based on the evidence we're seeing at this point, what detectives have to work with, what stands out to you?
Well, always establishing a timeline is very important when it comes to an investigation. You want to start at the very beginning of where this all started. And then from then you can kind of work backwards, which is the way I did a lot of cases that I was involved in. So that would be into social media, emails, communications of any sort with anyone that might have been involved with this. And then going forward in the investigation with other types of surveillances that are out there, like cameras, store cameras, traffic cameras, anything that can establish a clear-cut timeline of what happened with this case.
Often you hear the first 48, and for those who are not in law enforcement or in the legal community, that's what you hear in the movies, you hear it in the TV shows. But now that we're 10 days since she first went missing, at this point, where would you say the investigation is at?
Well, like I said, it's now established what happened. You have a body. So now it's not so much a search. Now it's the investigation of what happened to this girl. And that's what's going to be the focus of everything that has to do with her is now going to be in play and put into a possible prosecution of someone. And that starts right away. You want to get into the DNA, electronic communications, digital footprints, anything you can do to establish someone's guilt. And that prosecution of that case starts with the detectives when this case starts. So you start building evidence, you start getting interviews done and possible witnesses on top of just physical evidence that might be at the crime scene.
And one of the big pieces of evidence that has been found is this car that she was last seen getting into. We don't know who was driving the car, but the day before her body was found, authorities were able to locate this vehicle. What type of evidence could they get from that car?
Oh, every type of DNA evidence you can think of. And again, not only the DNA evidence, now you have the car. So now you can pinpoint other surveillances, as I said, like videos and store surveillances, door cams, anything that could do to locate this car. But as far as what could be in the car is a complete treasure trove of possible DNA evidence from sweat, hair, blood, fibers, anything that could do linking that car to a perpetrator and then linking it to the victim.
At this point, what we know about this victim, Heather Williams, is that according to her family in 2015, she was in a car accident and she had some cognitive challenges that she lived with. As a victim, how does that impact the profile of how you're trying to figure out the way that she interacted with people, who she may have interacted with, and who potentially could be a suspect?
Yeah, that's all going to play out on, like I said, a digital footprint. And there's people out there who take advantage of that. And that's what you're going to key on. Was this someone known to her that knew the capabilities or lack of capabilities that she had and the limitations that she had? So it may be, a communication that can be found with conversations that went on that triggered this person to realize that she may be in a limited capacity and then took full advantage of that.
At this point, when you look at this story, and it's starting to get a lot of attention originally over the weekend when she was first reported missing, and then her body was found. It was really a local story, but now this is expanded to a national story. I know you have covered stories like this, have investigated cases like this throughout your career. What is it about these types of stories that seem to generate so much interest?
Well, it's the mystery. It's the whole mystery thing that people get wrapped up in, and the true crime nature of it. You have the mystery of this young girl who, like I said, like you said, was in an accident and has a handicap. So that plays into it, and it's an interest. These mysteries consume people, and they get wrapped up into it, and it just lingers. It's a continuous story as far as this goes and as long as this goes. But, we don't know where the investigation is because police are keeping it pretty tight lipped, which I understand. A lot of
Yeah.
investigations like this keep a close niche on it because you don't want too much information out there when you're looking for someone.
Why is that? Because I mean, it's easy for me on this side. We want to know as much information as we can. The family has spoken to local media outlets and have said that they believe that there's a person of interest in this case. They also mentioned that there was a 3-minute phone call that police zeroed in on. Who that call was with, we don't know. From the investigator's standpoint, why not release more information than what's out there right now?
Because that person that they're looking at may not have the access to social media or just media coverage. So you don't want to let the cat out of the bag. You don't want to lead anyone into what you have in the investigation because then they see it and they take off and they're gone. On top of, you may be gathering more information on someone and more evidence enough to keep him in. Like I said before, you start the prosecution of this case right away. So the more evidence you get against someone and the more victims that are witnesses that you get and their statements leads to a better airtight case when you go either to a grand jury or to arrest somebody. So you want to keep it as close as you can until you don't need to anymore and you go and arrest somebody.
In so many of these cases, it is someone who knows the victim who eventually is arrested. We don't know how this story is going to end, but why is it someone who typically has had a relationship or has had interactions with the victim so often in these cases are the ones that end up being arrested?
Because they're the most accessible to that person, and if they have, a plan or ill intentions to this person, it is a lot of times known to them because, look, it's going to be, when you look at it, it may be someone known to them because of how easily she got in the car. Someone knew where she lived. So, they got picked up there. She came out of the house, she got in the car. So if it is somebody that she knows, is not going to be surprising to me. And then again, the conversation, someone had contacted her, I'm on my way, I'm here, or whatever that might be. So they are probably zooming in on someone that is known to her.
I want to go back to the establishing of a timeline and how investigators are able to do that because where she lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina, was about 5.5 miles from where eventually her body would be found. When you're a detective, you're investigating a case like this, you look at the map of Fayetteville. What is the process of establishing that timeline and figuring out exactly how far out you have to go and where exactly you have to search? Because 5.5 miles may not sound like a lot, but when you think of all the different places that could be within that area, I mean, it certainly is a large, large amount of land.
Yeah, it's a large area for sure. But what you do is you just start piecing it together like a puzzle, and it starts right from the house. What direction did that car go in? So a large amount of detectives, and it's a lot of footwork. You're going to go from store to store to store, or residence to residence, or traffic camera to traffic camera, and just piece together the travels of that car. And you can do it. We've done it in Manhattan, when we've had perpetrators that we're looking for and we know a direction they went in. You're just piecing it together like a puzzle until, there's an ending to it.
Right now, authorities, as they continue this investigation, they're looking for information from the community still, asking for information to come in through Crime Stoppers. In your experience, how effective are those random phone calls that could come in with someone with pieces of information?
Extremely important. And I implore every police department all the time to ask the public, because I've said this so many times on other shows. The police can't be everywhere, but the public is everywhere. And that's what you have to rely on. Somebody saw them, someone knows something. And whether it's a guilty feeling that comes over that they have to give something up, or a lot of times it's people that don't realize that it's a big deal and just say, hey, I might have seen them here. And that opens up a large piece of this investigation. So I am always into asking the public for help. And because they cover everywhere where the police are limited in what they can do.
But with that, I mean, the endurance as an investigator that you must have to have, because I'm sure for that one piece of information that could break a case, there are dozens of calls that come in that eventually really lead to nowhere. How do you, just as an investigator and the pressure is on to try and figure out who did this, that you're actually able to continue to go through all these calls and still approach them in a way where, hey, this could be something?
Yeah, it's a lot of teamwork. It's a lot of depending on other members of the department and maybe other police departments in general that are in the area. And everyone's going to get tasked with a certain mission. You may have three or four guys, and all they're doing are running down leads. All they're doing is running down phone calls of possible leads, and they will bounce around a lot from witness to witness and fielding phone calls involving this investigation, then pass it on to the lead detective or the two lead detectives that are running this, and they'll establish or determine what's next if they go and speak to those people or they come in for even more of a intense interview of the information that they're giving up. So it's a lot of teamwork when it comes to something like this.
It's an investigation that is continuing on in the case of Heather Williams, who went missing in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then her body was found in a wooded area about 5.5 miles from her house in that community. Retired NYPD Detective Tom Smith, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Police in North Carolina are continuing to look for information to try and solve the murder of Heather Williams. They're asking for information to be passed along to the local Crime Stoppers. We'll stay on top of this story here at Law and Crime. In the comments, let us know what you think about this case. Until next time, I'm Chris Stewart. Thanks for joining us.